Honorable Men Discord, Dr. Joy Degruy. Let's talk about it. All right, let's get into it. You know, February is not over just yet, so I want to take these next few days to really highlight amazing individuals that push our culture, well, not even our culture, push education of our history at the forefront. They devote their lives to educating the black community. And I want to say I came across Dr. Joy Degruy yesterday, and I was completely blown away by her vast knowledge, her intellect, an amazing woman. I can't express that enough. What you see to my side is a book that she published called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. All right. I most definitely, after seeing her material online, am going to get that book. All right. Because from what I saw as far as her presentations, it was just phenomenal. The education that I've gained from her is priceless. Okay. I don't even know where to start with this. Well, let me first start by letting you all know about Dr. Degruy and her educational background. So let me start with that. First, let me take this out. Okay, so Dr. Degruy holds a bachelor's degree of science in speech communication from Portland State University, 2 master's degrees in social work from Portland State and clinical psychology from Pacific University, and a PhD in social work and social research from Portland State University's Graduate School of Social Work. Her doctoral dissertation studied predictive variables for African American male youth violence using socio-cultural theory, social learning theory, and trauma theory frameworks. All right, that's a little bit about her actual education, but what she's been up to right now. It says Degruy is an American author, researcher, and academic. She's the president and CEO of Degruy Publications, Inc., and the executive director of Be the Healing, Inc. She's best known for her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Again, that's the cover that I have on the side. Take a look at it. And I would just encourage you all, if you're into reading, to go and support her book and get that knowledge. So let me close this out real quick. And I'm just going to get into some things that I found, some reels on Dr. Degruy before I get into what I really want to get into, which is Dr. Degruy discussing on a platform, and I'm going to give that platform credit when I get to that. She's discussing the history of the Statue of Liberty, which that is the reason why, from when I saw that particular video, I watched the entire video, but her story on the Statue of Liberty, is what led me to continue to look up more material on her. And I watched I want to say it was like over an hour video on one of her lectures that she did some years ago. Phenomenal lecture, which both that lecture and the clip on the Statue of Liberty, I'm going to put that in the description for you all to take a look at that. But let's get into some of the things that I found on Dr. Degruy.
Look at who's in the picture. I want you to look at this little girl in particular. You can't see her closely, but she's actually grimacing, like smirking. Now, remember, let's go back to the puppy concept here. She would be loathed and torn up probably if this was a puppy, which means he's less than that, because she's not disturbed. This little girl is not disturbed by this, but she should be, shouldn't she? People always ask me, they go, Joy, what was the impact on white people? There it is, right there. can't feel any empathy for him. None, zero, zip. There's a little one back here, even smaller. Because whatever she's been taught or told, socialized to believe, makes him no longer human. Look at who's in the picture.
So I just want to say this particular clip that I just showed you, this is actually a clip from the full lecture that I saw, which is phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. I can't emphasize that enough. Just plain phenomenal. And again, I'm going to put the entire lecture in the description for you all to see. But let's move in right along.
This one little kid dunks on the other little kid. The kid starts crying, he gets mad, and he starts walking over and pushing and just pushing. His work is called PLAY, Preventing Long-Term Anger and Aggression in Youth. The coaches, the refs come in, they pull him apart, and he goes, no, let me go, let me go. And he said, I'm not gonna let you go. And what Howard witnessed, he was never able to stop anger, but he could stop aggression. And that moment taught him to touch them. He says, our children have become untouchable. And that boy melted in his arms when that coach just held him. He said, touch, literally touch, reduced aggression. It's one little.
All right, that's another clip. Just giving you a little clips from Dr. Degruy. Let me actually take this out. I'm going to get to this one. This is actually, what you're seeing right now is also a clip from the full presentation that I watched on Dr. Degruy. And this, before I press play on this, this is actually, she's discussing many individuals that from the past American history have been a part of the reason why slavery has been embedded in the minds of the African American people. And I'm just gonna let Dr. Degruy do the talking.
And it was J. Marion Sims. I won't spend a lot of time with him. He's another figure. You can Google him. There's a statue actually of him in Central Park. And J. Marion Sims was an individual credited. He was a father of modern gynecology. How many women in here know what a vaginal speculum is? And for those men in the room that we lost, a vaginal speculum is a device designed to open up the vagina. It was considered one of the most important advancements in medicine that was made. He was credited as being the wealthiest wealthiest physician to have ever lived. And what's interesting about him, look at the medals pinned on him. I was just very curious about how it was they regarded this man, because no one ever really looked at how did he come up with that vaginal speculum. The way he did it was he actually worked on did experiments on unanesthetized slave women. He created a makeshift hospital in his backyard in the mid-1800s. He built the first vaginal speculum from a pewter spoon. And he reasoned that slave women were able to bear great pain, meaning we don't need any anesthesia, because their race made them more durable, and thus they were well suited for painful medical experimentation. We didn't even, because we didn't feel like other women could feel. This man would cut into women, cut into them, and just said, well, since they're black, they don't really feel it. Unbelievable. And more importantly is what he did to infants, because not only did he experiment.
One thing I failed to mention is when I post the link for the full video in the description, I just have to caution the viewers that if you don't have thick skin, you may want to pass on watching the full material, because it's tough to watch. It's very extremely disturbing, and it's gonna evoke emotions. All right, and I had to say that because as I continue, she's now going to talk about what that individual used to do to children, black children.
Women, he also experimented on infants. He said that black infants suffered from something he called trimus nascentium, which is now commonly referred to as neonatal tetanus. Neonatal tetanus originates in horse manure, which was a likely cause of the disease in slave infants. He attributed it to the indecency and intellectual flaws of slave infants, together with skull malformations at birth. That is a shoemaker's awl. And that's the 1800s shoemaker's awl. He would stick that into the heads of brand new infants in an effort to realign their skulls based on the indecency and intellectual flaws of their parents, to treat the malady. Of course, it was 100% death rate. But that's what he would stick in the head of a baby at birth. And so these are things that are so horrific that you can't possibly wrap your head around it. And this man is, just Google it. And you think to myself, I think to myself, if I were up here in front of you right now, and this is
deep what she's about to say.
I move into the other slides. If I stomped a puppy to death out here, up here, just a little puppy, stomped it right here to death in front of you, most of you would need therapy. And I would be arrested probably faster than killing a black man for killing a puppy. How could you do that? Do you realize how much dissonance you have to remove in order to stick that into the brain of a child? More importantly, the child can no longer be human. Are you understanding what I'm saying? The reason why he could do it is they weren't human. They didn't even feel pain.
I don't want to go any further on that clip. Trust me when I tell you, you have to watch the full entire video where that's taken from. Okay? Powerful, powerful, powerful. It just talks about how there's actually text that was put into like official scientific, quote unquote, scientific text to prove that black people weren't human. And one of the things that she explained within that long lecture is that in order for the oppressors to function the way that they did, they had to practice the thought that black people weren't human. So when they would harm the black people, they were able to disassociate the act from what they were doing because they just looked at black people as property and less than human, not even human. So it wasn't looked at as like, oh, well, we can have our way with the women because they were property. It wasn't considered the R word that I don't want to say because it may get flagged on YouTube. But, they looked at black women as property. They looked at the black children as property. One of the things she mentioned in the lecture was she used the term chattel slavery. And I had to look it up because that was the first time from Dr. Degruy, that I heard the term chattel slavery. So I said, what is chattel slavery? So here it is. It says chattel slavery is a type of slavery where enslaved people are treated as property, while slavery is a general term for the practice of owning another person. It goes on to say definition. It says systems where people are owned by another person and can be bought, sold, or passed down through generations. That is chattel slavery. All right, to be very specific, because all through my life up until I want to say yesterday, I just knew the term slavery, and I assumed it embodied all those things that I just mentioned. But the proper term for all those things I mentioned, the actual practice of being bought, sold, and passed through generations, is chattel slavery. All right, but let me continue.
It dunks on the other little kid. The kid starts crying, he gets mad, and he starts walking over and pushing.
I think I may have played this one already. So you know what? Let me just get straight to the video that inspired this all. Actually, no, let me play this. I did not play this. Let me get into this, and then I'm going to go into the video that inspired me to even do this episode on Dr. Joy Degruy.
What I know about sugar plantations, tobacco, and the Caribbean, what I know about American chattel slavery, and the plantations there. Does anyone right now ever recall mental health assistance to slaves? Anybody remember sending in the therapist after I sold off your son, daughter, raped folks? At any point? Never. Second question. After slavery was officially over, now you're free. Anybody remember any therapy then? We know it's been rough, it's been deep for you, it's been difficult. We're going to do a little group therapy. Anybody remember that? That would be no. Number 3, after slavery officially ended, both in the States, in the Caribbean, the British, do you remember whether or not trauma continued? Did the trauma continue for people? What I know about you.
Now, again, I encourage you all, once I put the link in the description, to watch the full lecture. And the reason why she's speaking on this is because she's speaking towards those that would say, who, when black folks bring up, trauma from slavery, people pass it off as though like, oh, there you go again, talking about slavery. That was many years ago. Slavery was roughly about 300 years worth of slavery. And once the slaves were free, they weren't really free. There were all types of stipulations to get on your feet, to get on solid ground, to work, to start a business. It's the games that were played to still have control over the black people. But I don't want to digress. What she was speaking on is the fact that many times when black people bring up the fact that, a lot of the reasons why we act the way we act is due to the long history of slavery, people just want to disregard that history as like, just get over it. But what she mentioned is very powerful, because in all honesty, there was never any type of treatment for that trauma. So that trauma was passed on to the slaves' children's, to the slaves' children, and then their children. It just gets passed on. Again, being owned, bought, sold, the R word, those things are not something that you can just forget, But let's get into the final clip that I took out, and let me give the credit to Volt Empowers. By the way, the host, and she mentioned, I believe she was a former educator, right? So that's her background. But by all means, watch the full episode. Go to the Volt Empowers, support that channel, and watch this entire interview, because this was the interview. I watched this entire interview, but although this is the clip just about what I wanted to highlight, which is the background on the Statue of Liberty. But this episode is definitely worth watching. But I must tell you, the older lecture that I showed in the beginning of this video is what I really, really encourage those of you who are interested in learning more about Dr. Joy Degruy. I really encourage you to watch that. But let's get into this history about the Statue of Liberty.
So you tell this story of the Statue of Liberty being commissioned in 1865 by the French artist, and the original drawing of the Statue of Liberty.
And that story, I had no idea that it resonated the way it did with folks, because I was experiencing it, right? So it's actually, the whole story is in the book, the revised book. I actually put it in there. So it was around 2007, 2008. A friend of mine called me and said me, Joy, and this friend, Floyd Myers, brother of Heavy D, he called me. He says, Joy, he lives in Mount Vernon, and our families are really close. He said, I got a new job. I said, what's the new job? He said, I work for the Department of the Interior. I said, really? He said, I'm for all the national parks for the state of New York, right? So Forestry Department, all these. He said, I'd like you to come to the Statue of Liberty. I said, no. And he said, no, why not? I said, I'm not going, Floyd. It's gonna make me mad. I'm not going. He says, well, why is it gonna make you bad? I said, because, well, I've been to France. I'd actually seen the original drawings of Bartholdi, who was the architect who did the sculpture. Um, and I knew that the Statue of Liberty, and everybody knows in her right hand she's holding a torch. And I always ask my audience, what is she holding in her left hand? Right. And when I was at the Statue of Liberty, because I eventually agreed, because Floyd was insistent, and he said, I can give you a pass, we can go up in her eye and everything. I said, okay. So when I go there, I'm going there with the knowledge that the Statue of Liberty was holding originally in her left hand broken chains. Again, commissioned 1865, pretty important date, end of slavery, end of the Civil War, all of those things were why. She is a statue of what? Liberty. Which makes sense. So she has broken chains in her left hand. Now she's holding a rectangular object with a Roman numeral on it. That's what she's holding. So I'm telling Floyd, I said, I know for a fact this is a historical document. I know it is. So first thing that happens when you go to Statue of Liberty, and I actually went to the first time with a friend of mine, and her name is Faith Holmes. And Faith is white, very white, blonde hair, blue eyes. She almost got us thrown out of the place. She had a meltdown, right? I'm going, look, you can't be melting down here. Okay, we're not having it, news at 11. We're there, and I'm really, really very, very, the ranger who was, you get taken together and you get put in these groups. You're assigned a ranger. And he was very enthusiastic. He really was. A really enthusiastic man. He says, so now, I am going to be your ranger today. And they tell you more about the Statue of Liberty than you ever want to know. They tell you why it's green, because it was copper and it oxidized. They tell you how they got it over there. They tell you how they changed the torch a couple of times. They tell you that they even show you how thin it is.
I just have to pause this real quick. This is a perfect example of why we all are responsible for learning history on our own. Because when I heard this story, I had never heard this story in my life about the Statue of Liberty. And by the way, the thumbnail for this video, you may or may not have noticed, but it's the actual foot of the Statue of Liberty bearing the chain on the ankles of the Statue of Liberty. But I'm going to let the doctor continue.
Right. Just how thin the whole thing is, right? And he says, and if you have any questions, so of course,
excuse me,
my hand shot up, right? And I said, I was wondering if you're going to talk about the chains, right? So now you got to understand, every 20 minutes, thousands of people are getting off that ferry, coming to Ellis Island, coming to Statue of Liberty. So I say something about chains, and now you got people translating it into different languages. They go, she said something about chains, right? So, because I knew that she was holding, those broken chains. So now at this point, I'm like, they got to be here somewhere. So Floyd and I are now looking for the historical document that I said, the picture of it. I said, they can't not have it. It's a Statue of Liberty. They got to have it there. So we go into the basement of the Statue of Liberty.
This was so crazy to me.
We're in the basement of the Statue of Liberty. We find the document encased in glass behind figurines facing a wall in a hallway. So here we have the truth.
Again, just from this interview, I was blown away and had to do my research and find more material on Dr. Degruy. Do you understand that? And I'm going to continue playing this. I don't know if the portion that I'm playing explains what I saw when I saw the full video, but do you understand that ever since I was younger and went to the Liberty Island with the school, with the elementary school at the time, I don't ever recall them mentioning that the Statue of Liberty had shackles on her feet. And some people might say, well, why does that matter? What matters is that the statue symbolizes well, what we've known that it symbolizes was that it symbolizes the immigrants, which the doctor's going to educate us all on the true initial meaning behind the Statue of Liberty and why the Statue of Liberty was gifted to us. But the shackles is very significant, especially the fact that the original drawing, the Statue of Liberty was not holding a book in her left hand. She was holding chains. So chains on her feet, chains in her hand. That would have been so powerful to see that on a statue that size, that many visitors come to New York to see that. But let's let Doctor continue.
Hidden in plain sight. So I'm sitting there going, so Floyd, I take a picture.
Oh, I have to pause it again. I'm sorry, I have to pause it again. Tell me why the original proof of that is in the basement facing a wall. Did you all catch that? Why is the original proof of that in the basement facing the wall? And why is it that before the doctor brought it up to one of the, I guess, one of the people that work for Liberty Island that give the lectures on the history of the Statue of Liberty, why wasn't that part of the what they tell those that visit? Why did the doctor have to bring it up? Like, what about the chains? She had to ask the guy. She raised her hand, asked the guy, what about the chains? Why was that left out? Again, how many other things were intentionally left out? I mean, these are some things that I guess some of us know existed, but to hear it is just like, I'm blown away as we continue.
Took a picture, and I said, this is insane. I said, this is really insane that, here we have that picture. Well, I then asked my audience, who won the argument? Because Bartholdi insisted that the chains remain. He really did. He was adamant. He was an advocate for abolitionism. He said the chains got to stay. And I asked the audience, who won? Did Bartholdi win or did the United States win? And they always say, well, the United States won. I said, no, they didn't. Bartholdi won. The chains are actually still there. And they have always been there the entire time at her feet, where it is impossible to see them under any circumstances. Yeah. Those broken shackles are on both sides. On her, as she looks like she's walking, there are broken shackles at her feet.
Okay.
So the agreement was,
so I had to look this up. All right, so Bartholdi, the person she's referring to, is the actual artist of the Statue of Liberty. So when she says who won, was it the United States or Bartholdi? Because the United States didn't want that shown. They didn't want it shown. But as you can, if you look back at the thumbnail, if you exit out of this video and look back at the thumbnail, or actually look right beside me, there you go, I have to lean back for it. Those chains exist. Those chains exist, but the thing is that, as a child, when I went to Liberty Island with elementary school, they never spoke about it. Again, she's saying that was somewhere in the basement, in a glass enclosure facing a wall, right? And it was certainly not told by any of the staff from Liberty Island. If you take a helicopter tour of the Statue of Liberty, you're so high up you can't see the chains. At least I don't believe you can see the chains, but maybe one day I'll book a helicopter tour out of curiosity and I'll be looking for it intentionally. But and then once you're on Liberty Island, obviously the Statue of Liberty is on like a pillar, so you can't see the Statue of Liberty's feet. So it's hidden, but the artist who she mentioned, Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, or Bartholdi, yeah, Bartholdi, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly, but it's Frederick Auguste Bartholdi. He's the artist of the Statue of Liberty. So when she asked, who won, was it Bartholdi or the United States? He won because he was able to still have the image of the shackles on Statue of Liberty's feet. But did he really win? If we're not able to see it, we don't have the vantage point to see it when we're on Liberty Island. So, I mean, I guess he won because it's there. But if an educator like Dr. Degruy didn't bring that to our attention, we would have never known. But let her continue.
chains, but we'll make it so no one can see them. Yeah. Because if she's on a pedestal,
Right.
the Statue of Liberty, if no one who's ever been, sometimes they don't realize, because we always see her like she's standing flat on the ground, but she's on a huge pedestal. Right. So you can't see over to see the chains, and if you're inside, you can't see them. So they're there and they're hidden. So now I'm feeling some kind of way, right? But I'm thinking, Floyd just got the job. You know what I'm saying? The man.
I can't let him lose his good black job.
The man, I can't get the man. I told Floyd, and Floyd, being Floyd, he said, go on and bring it, Joy. Go on and bring it. So I spoke to his supervisor. I said, I would like to pay to have a picture of the chains at her feet so that they're on display. And they're explained. And he said, no. I said, I'll tell you what I can do. I said, I'm sure that I can get, just cross the water, a black sculptor that will just sculpt that part, because God knows they show you every aspect of the Statue of Liberty. And he said, yeah, no. I said, okay, I'm going to tell on you. And so I travel all over the world. Yeah. For a living, I travel all over the world. And I told this story. And I showed the pictures all over the world. So I get this call from the Department of the Interior. They said, we'd like to talk to you, Dr. Degruy. And I'm going, I'm not scared. I'm from South Central. I did tell my family where I was going. So they call me, and I come over, and his boss, I think it was his boss's boss, who said to me, Dr. Degruy, we want to, apologize, and we want to acknowledge that we've been negligent, and we want to correct this. We want to immediately correct this. And the first thing we want to do is, we want to hire you to train all our rangers. I said, okay. And we're going to correct this negligence we've shown. So I didn't believe him. So I went back undercover, right? Because I wanted to know a couple of things. I wanted to know if they were going to first talk about the chains unasked, because I had asked
right.
The chains. And I was assigned with my little group. This is 2013, 2014. I'll go back, and I want to know if they've actually changed that. And my third visit, I go back, and I have a great ranger. The ranger not only tells the story of the chains, turns to me and says, "This is American history I'm sharing. It is your history, and it is my history, and I am proud to tell the story." It's a white ranger, right? So I'm thinking, great, this is wonderful. And the next thing I know, on the second visit, I had seen the picture displayed, and all that was great. But then in 2019, May 23rd, the Washington Post, they now have a museum that wasn't there. And they have a huge museum now at the Statue of Liberty. And it says, the Statue of Liberty was designed to celebrate freed slaves, not immigrants. Mm-hmm. Its new museum now recounts. And it goes on.
I'm going to leave it there. I don't think there's anything else I need to say besides that. Bravo to Dr. Joy Degruy. Again, I will make it my priority to put the link of this full video from Vault and Powers in the description, along with the other video that I said that I watched that was powerful, the lecture from a few years ago. I'll put both links in the description. But just bravo to her. Like I said, the last time I've been on Liberty Island, the first and last time was when I went as a child with elementary school. But I will make it my business now to go to see if those places that she mentioned are still remaining. I know she said 2019, so we're only a few years out. So I'm sure that that exhibit is still there. But I look forward to seeing it now that I know that history of the Statue of Liberty. And I'm glad. I was saying the employees of Liberty Island, but she clarified they're called Rangers. I'm glad they're telling the story, and I'm glad that thanks to Dr. Degruy and her research, that stuff has now been made available for us all to know. And the fact that the Statue of Liberty's real meaning was to represent the end of slavery makes it even more powerful, because most people for decades that have gone to visit the Statue of Liberty did not know that. And it's something that young black Americans, the children, need to know. because it's a part of our history. It's a true part of our history. So that's all I have to say on this. I encourage you all to just, again, do your due diligence and look into Dr. Degruy and her works. I definitely advise you to pick up her book because I know I will. And just enjoy learning more about your history. You know, I'm motivated. She motivated me to continue to learn more about different individuals, past and present, that are sacrificing their lives to educate us all on our past. And with that, I'd just like to again thank everyone for tuning in to another episode. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode. Take care.